What's up again, everybody? It's Carpo. This will be a part 2 of the previous video I did regarding conspiracies, the woke hashtag, and I really wanted to bring this together to explain exactly where I was coming from, because I did have a point to make. It's just that when you're going off the cuff and you're speaking from your mind and you don't have a recited sheet, to read from, it's a little more difficult to get all the points across that you want to remember. So sometimes I'll take notes throughout the day, think about a video I made, and then come up with the second part of it. Well, I wanted to get to the point of why I included woke and this whole, I guess, movement towards this woke hashtag. It's not really the main point of this, but I did want to get to that on the second half of this video. But I really wanted to further express where I'm coming from when it comes to, because I know that some people are going to be butthurt by the fact that I'm talking shit about flat earth or conspiracies of any sort, even though I make it blatantly clear in my video that, oh, by the way, yeah, I'm woke as hell. It says woke, Carpo 719. And it's a quote from me. It says, not just anyone can start a YouTube channel. It's kind of an inside joke. My my son and I said that to him earlier, my oldest son. I was like, hey, they don't just give these to anybody, And because I was explaining to him the situation of how entire generations are coming up and being immersed in the same cesspool as I grew up in. But instead of it being the media conglomerate giants that are doing it, it's the small YouTubers that are doing it. And then they're making ad revenue off of those conglomerate giants. So, to try to get this through without spending too much time on it, yes, there are lies out there. There are people who will rob you blind. There's corruption. There is... do I even need to express the fact that governments will test on their own subjects and that militaries are off fighting wars for rich fat fucks that sit around and literally smoke cigars in suits and laugh at the fucking stupidity of the rest of the world? We all know that's going on, but it doesn't mean that they control the world. And this is where I always draw the line between people who are getting rich off of human nature and the people who actually pull the strings, or rather the idea that everything is controlled. And this is why I kind of laugh at these conspiracy theories where, put it this way, it's more comfortable to believe that people are actually in control of this madhouse, this shit fest that we live in on the planet right now, than to think that it may just be, maybe, that evolution developed consciousness, and here we are suffering the consequences of that decision of nature to create consciousness. And you could call that God, you could call that a million different things. The thing is, everyone finds the need to label it, to name it. So it becomes a religious argument more often than not, where it's like, well, no, God created the universe this long ago. Well, no, he didn't. It's like, well, perhaps evolution is the unfolding of a flower. Perhaps the evolution is an unfolding of God, an evolution of the mind itself, of the universe. But you get into that, and then you're arguing about New Age beliefs. What it comes down to is feeling in your heart that you understand something without having to prove it to everyone. And this becomes identity politics. Well, I'm more spiritual than you. It's ludicrous. But it gets worse. People start saying, I don't believe anything anyone says. I only believe in my own senses. I've heard this from so many people. I only believe what I can see and hear, and from here the earth looks flat. If that's the type of evidence you need, well, you're probably highly suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect, which I can't state enough. The Dunning-Kruger effect is just a curve that shows that the less you know, the more you think you know. And it's been shown over and over. Different cultures, across different lines. It's universal. The less a person knows, the more that they believe that their limited scope of things is the way the world works. And when a person educates themselves on a lot of different subjects, they become a lot more worldly, and then they have to question what they thought they believed to be true. And this is where a lot of people completely walk away from it. So within this, many of these people, the question becomes where, say with the flat earth community, where's the science and where are the experts? And people will try to do their own experiments. They will be horribly done. And the only few I've seen that were actually done properly ended up yielding results they didn't want to believe. So they negated them. For example, anyone can look up the gyroscope experiment with the flat earth community, or looking over the water and saying, well, that's weird, it just doesn't fit up to what we want it to believe. And so instead of admitting defeat or looking for a different explanation, we tend to, it's absurd to watch this type of bias unfold and then other people not call it out. It's almost like a plague of stupidity out there. But then you get into the bigger questions about these conspiracies, like, what is the point of lying? I still haven't got an answer to this one. When I ask people, why would they lie about the Earth and the size of the Earth or the shape of the Earth or whether space exists, they say, control, man. It's all about control. They just want to control the history books. And I'm like, well, think about how much money it would cost to fake everything that's been faked. Now, put those efforts and that money against the benefit that would have been accrued from it. I don't understand the math. It doesn't make sense to me. And since money and power are the greatest things, if they really have that much power, all I would say was, all they have to do is tell you the Earth is flat and deal with it, and we're still your masters. People just don't think these things through. The idea of why these things exist or why these lies exist. And this is the psychology of it, the belief that if you're in a community and you're in the know, then you're woke, which that is nothing related to what woke originally meant, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Humans really suck at keeping secrets. I mean, they're horrible at it. So the idea that everyone's just these sheeple and they're not paying attention, and that these, high and mighty people have kept these giant conspiracies hidden for thousands of years is, in some cases anyway, is ludicrous, because, even the smallest, perversions of society there's a whistleblower always there to expose it. Now, there are, of course, hidden lies and groups that won't reveal their secrets. So be it. I guess what it comes down to is maybe, what do you really believe about human nature? And do you believe that life is generally good and has good intentions, and humans do? Or is that you feel the world is a fearful, scary place where everyone's out to get you? And I've asked this question. I've been doing these videos for years, but a lot of people who watch my channel don't realize that 4 or 5 years ago I was really into the occult conspiracy kind of stuff, and I was posting all kinds of random videos about spirit and these ancient cultures, and I had crazy arguments with people who were so hung up on their religion that they just wanted to argue for the sake of arguing. But arguing from ignorance is always louder. That was the point I really wanted to make here on this part. When you have nothing to say, it seems that the people who have the least to say speak the loudest. They will make entire 3-hour-long podcasts where they bring on 3 other people and talk about how the world's flat, the world's flat. And of course I never watch any of these, but I've seen them. I've clicked on one and listened to parts of them and thought, these guys are just sitting here blowing smoke up each other's asses. What are they, gaining from this? But it only becomes damaging when it goes outside that circle and infects the young people's minds, like I've said before. I don't give a damn if, grown men and women want to go out and believe that the world's out to get them, but if kids do, then I'd like to help them overcome that, because the world's not as scary as you might think, or I should say, it's pretty fucking scary. A lot of bad shit happens to all of us, but it's a lot of perspective, mental alchemy, being able to transmute those thoughts. And so you want to move from ignorance to enlightenment, but that takes, I guess, an understanding of yourself, and that takes time. So a lot of the time it comes down to a fear of change. And there's a lot of ageism involved in this, whereas people say, oh, well, the old people, they never want to change, and then the young people, they want to move forward, and change the world. And I think that that's great. There are a lot of changes that need to be made. But there's something to be said about right and left brain, and that's the same to me as kind of this conservative and liberal mindset, not politically, but rather keeping things the way they are as opposed to change. And in our individual lives, we find this to be true. You need a routine, you need stability, family, connection in order to feel, consistent. But if you don't have something to shake that up, vacation, trips, weekends, whatever, then you get a little stir crazy. So I found that a lot of the folks who believe in these conspiracy theories have a very strong suspicion of others. And that's probably why I'm speaking about this, because I want to dispel that kind of myth. There's a lot of selective arguments. I guess the example I came up with was, you could, this is of course kind of a metaphor, or rather an absurd example, but you tell somebody, well, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and they're the kind of people who say, dude, the grass isn't green at all. It's just the way that the light refracts off the atomic structure and your eye perceives the color. The color's not really there. And that's kind of how I feel talking to some of these people. They're like, how can you know for sure, man? How can you be sure what you think is right, and what's true is true? And my answer to that is, how can you be so ignorant to think that you can just wonder about everything your whole life, and that is considered knowledge? Because when you're calling truth, and all you're doing is saying, I don't believe anything, then you have no fucking truth. Sorry to say. So, yeah, the grass is green, because I see it as green, okay? But there's more to it, and I understand the science, too, that it's not really green. Which means that there's a duality to it. There's understanding things on multiple levels. And people just want to have this straight and narrow view of how things are, and it's just ludicrous to me. But people crave meaning. People crave purpose. Humans crave the ability to fit into a community, and that cannot be overstated. I mean, that is such an important thing. If people don't feel like they belong, and honestly, a lot of the conspiracy community are people who feel like they were outcasts, and I really challenge anyone to deny that and show some, upstanding, esteemed citizens who have a lot of friends and lives who are out there complaining with their tinfoil hats on. That doesn't mean that there aren't conspiracies. And these people are necessary to expose some of the bullshit in the world. The problem lies not when people are researching corruption or researching conspiracies, but when people are just repeating the same headlines they saw from another video in order to get more and more and more views. Or, and it comes down to, it's more than just clickbait. Because it's not someone saying, hey, look at this idiot who's bashing his head like in Jackass or something, where people are watching it for the shock value and they know it's fake. These are people who are posing YouTube channels as if they're real and factual, but they are well aware that they're bullshit. And then, guys making up stories of, well, the earth is flat, but earthquakes happen because there's these giant lava tubes through the earth. And once in a while, there's cave-ins in these lava tubes, and they create earthquakes. And the other guy's like, no, man. It's just, there's a light in the sky, and God has this firmament over the heavens, and there's this dome over the planet. And another guy's saying, no, it's not a dome, it's this or that. The arguments almost become absurd, and you can obviously tell that some of the people believe it, some of the people are just saying it to get views and get attention, and the other group are like, what the hell, is this real or not? And so maybe I'm trying to reach the group who are on the far side, because it's found that people who want to believe what they want to believe will not change their minds. And to anyone who says, well, you, dude, you Carpo, you've got the same problem. You're not open-minded enough. I will refer you to the previous video where I spent the first 5 minutes explaining exactly why I am qualified for this, because I spent 10, 15 years in fucking conspiracy mode and looked at every angle on these things. So a person may want to pick out specifics about anything I've said, and they're going to say, well, what about this? What about that? I'm not going to argue those points. It's not worth my time. I make these points in order to reach a wider audience, but not to argue with one specific person who wants to know why NASA faked this video, or this person who says, well, if we did land on the moon, then why did this happen? Hell, maybe we didn't land on the moon. That's not even in the top of my concerns right now. I mean, really it's all about being suspicious of your government is fucking essential. Being suspicious of your military, as well as other governments and other militaries, but at the same time, respecting your scientists, your ancestors, the people that came before you, that put these efforts forward. So, there's enough real mystery out there to not have to make up other mysteries. to not have to make up the bullshit. You see what I'm saying? It's like, kind of like the way they market God, you know? God doesn't need marketing. Just like truth doesn't need marketing. And if you want to claim that everyone else is lying, so be it. That's fine. That's the way you're going to live your life. I'm not going to try to change your mind, but all I would say is that most of the people I've met in the real world, even though there's some real shitballs, most people aren't organized enough to pull the wool over your eyes, to delude you to the degree that some people think we're being deluded or lied to. Like I mentioned in the previous video, the guy who talked about volcanoes, and he was, whether or not he believed in it is really irrelevant. It's just the idea that I remember in 1980 when Mount St. Helens blew up and there was blanketed ash all over the Portland area. And I just think it's funny because every single person who has a conspiracy that claims something wasn't true or didn't happen. And I haven't even got into this aspect of shootings. People who claim that everything's fake and all the news is fake, every single thing. I'm not even going to go into that one because that's a huge one. I mean, that's probably the largest point that I want to cover, but through the means I'm doing it. In other words, I don't want to attack the whole fake news argument because that's too political, too politicized. There is a lot of bullshit news out there, for sure, but my idea that I'm going to believe that I've been lied to by everyone, let me investigate that. And so I did. And I found out that I had been lied to, but not as much as some people would like me to think. And that the scientists who argue against some of these conspiracies or ideas about flat Earth actually have really good points to make. And if you want to discount every single video from space and pretend like they're wearing hairspray while they're spinning around and that they're put in vacuum chambers or magnetic chambers, or the question is, why would NASA waste all this money in the first place, right? But everyone has an answer for it. And so I found that we can't stand to be alone in our thoughts. And when people don't feel like others believe in them or don't relate to them, they're willing to join any group which will have them. And so I'm the devil's advocate in this. I want change. I want people to be able to, wake up to these things. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I intended to make that woke aspect a part of this video. But this video turned into being so goddamn long that I can't even put it in there. So maybe I should do it in the next one. Because it's pretty much unrelated, but not in the mindset that I have. So I'll let it go. I'll leave it for a future video. This, the idea of identity politics and that we're better than someone else because we believe a certain thing or think a certain way. And the whole woke term started in the 60s. It was a black thing, but now blacks claim that whites have culturally appropriated that, just like dreadlocks and everything else. I don't know, I was just kind of bothered by the fact that I read a couple articles and it was people saying, well, white people have stolen this from us and stolen that from us, and I realized that everything we do, all of us, is cultural appropriation. It's all taken from previous cultures. And that's the world we live in, I mean, you can't deny that, but anyway, wokeness isn't being different. It's about integrity. And it seems like this term woke is used to define people who are like, I'm aware of these causes or these problems. Sure, perhaps. And words do change over time. But what's more important is that you have integrity. And that means that you can relate to people. Not that you're screaming on a street corner from one side or the other, but that you can actually relate and discuss things with one another. And so even though this entire video is based around talking shit about conspiracy theories, it's not for the sake of insulting any individual out there. Not one of you. I'm not trying to harm you. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm hoping that I can, through being calm enough and having a demeanor that's reasonable, can say, okay, we're all humans, okay? Don't forget that. When you watch any video, when you listen to any music, watch a show, anything, just remember we're all human. Everybody is just doing the best they can, and that we all put on somewhat of a show when we're talking to other people, and that underneath we're all naked, okay? And that's really helped me kind of live my life and move past some of the judgments I might have of other people. And you might notice I'm standing to make my video the last couple of times. It's because my back has just totally been killing me the last 4 days. But when I stand, it's okay, so I'm good to go. And when I say that, you might think that that pain that I've been feeling might have rubbed me the wrong way, pun intended, and and be slightly an influence on why I'm discussing these particular subjects, or kind of poking fun and a little more cynical. And I thought, well, no, yeah, you might be right. I don't know. But if so, that psychology tells you a little bit about all of us. We're all in a little bit of pain. Whether it's physical or mental, it's processed through the same channels. So we do our best. I don't like spending my time talking shit about others' beliefs or what other people are claiming, but when I can plainly see bullshit, I have to call it out. And that's what I'm doing here. So now that I've gotten these two like freaking 20 plus minute videos out of the way, now I'll get to the video that I was trying to do 3 days ago about enlightenment. And oh, how pretentious and arrogant of me. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. See you soon. Be well.